Everything you're about to hear is for education and entertainment purposes only. Whilst we are licensed, we're not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Any advice is general advice. Equity Mates operates under Australian Financial Services Licence 540697.
Equity Mates!
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.
Life throws many moments at you, some major triumphs, some awkward mishaps, and some real lows. And in this Real Talk series brought to you by Guzman y Gomez, we're going deep on some of the highs and lows of our investing journey. Welcome to Equity Mates Investing Podcast. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you going?
I'm very good, Bryce. Very excited for this episode. Loving this series. We're getting real.
Yes.
And we're talking. But in this episode, we are talking about investing at any age.
Yeah.
We're going decade by decade and talking about some of the things that you can think about, that you can do, or that you can plan to do if you're young and some of those decades are in your future. But the key message that we want to get across is whatever your age, it's never too late to take control of your money and secure your financial future.
So keep it real and eat a burrito.
Love that.
All right, we're going to start with our 20s, Ren, which is all about building your foundations. If you're in your 20s, you're thinking about investing, I think the main thing to realize is that you are in a very good place.
Yes. Yeah.
Time is on your side.
We got a question not too long ago, which was like, I'm investing and I'm 22 and I feel like I'm behind. And the important thing to stress here is if you're in your 20s and you're thinking about money in this way, you're very far ahead.
Absolutely.
In your 20s, it's, as you said, it's about building your foundations. I think there's probably no more important foundation to a solid investing house or solid financial house than clearing out bad debt.
Yeah, big time.
That's where a lot of these conversations need to start. What do we mean by bad debt?
Consumer debt, any debt with an incredibly high interest rate on it and debt that is not being used to invest or build an asset.
What don't we mean by bad debt?
Good debt.
Well, I think
mortgage is a good debt.
Yeah, not a lot of 20-year-olds have mortgages, but for me, in your 20s, it's HECS.
Yeah.
Question we get often is like, should I be focusing on paying off HECS/HELP debt?
Yeah.
Our answer is no. Our answer is it's only indexed to inflation. Generally, inflation is lower than it's been in the past few years. It might rise 1 to sometimes 3% a year. Your expected return on investments is a lot higher than that. And so each dollar that you have a choice over paying off HECS or putting to work in an investment, your expected long-term return will be better investing that money. So, pay off bad debt, your credit card debt, car loans, that kind of stuff.
Ideally, try and avoid it if you can, because I look back on my time in my 20s and the amount of time and money I spent trying to pay off my consumer debt from university was a bit of a handbrake. Like this, if you can avoid it, you're going to set your foundations up even more.
Definitely.
Even more.
Okay, so number one foundation, get rid of bad debt or avoid bad debt entirely.
Second foundation is to get your emergency fund sorted. This is where you review your expenses and you try and build a cash buffer that covers 2, 3, 4, up to 6 months of your expenses. Now, you might be at uni, you might be living at home, whatever it may be, but try and get in the habit at least of building that buffer and an emergency fund. Because if you have that, then you're less likely to rely on consumer debt for emergencies. You're less likely to draw on savings for emergencies. You know that you're going to be covered for any sort of like large cash requirement that comes up.
Yeah, my rule of thumb, and it's obviously different for different people, is start by getting to 1 month emergency fund. That's a big milestone. Tick that off. Then build it out to 3. If you're in an insecure type of work, like you're a freelancer or a contractor, and so the likelihood of you being without work for a period of time, then you maybe start thinking about getting it to 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're in a pretty secure job or you're in an industry where if you lose your job, you won't be too long before you get another job, then you can probably be comfortable at 3 months and start thinking about some of these other foundations. The next one, the one that we get most excited about, invest early.
Invest early. I mean, if you get to this point, huge tick. I guess the important thing is to what to invest in here, because if you are investing, you want to be, your time horizon is on your side. That's the biggest thing, the biggest superpower you have.
Yeah, well, I mean,
decades of investing.
Yeah, arguably we did the episodes the wrong way around. But if you're wondering what to invest in, episode 1 of this series, we spoke about how we would start investing in these globally diversified index ETFs, and we shared a couple of tickers that we would think about in that previous episode. But I think putting it in something that is growth. And so, you know, like if property is realistic for you at this point, then like there's nothing wrong with saying property over stocks. But in our minds, the majority of people listening, property isn't realistic. No. For us, it's start with the stock market, start in something that is not defensive, so not buying fixed income or bonds, something that is like 100% stocks that you can just buy regularly each time you get paid. That's going to hold you in good stead.
Absolutely. So that's your 20s.
Yes.
Get your foundation sorted.
Oh, hold on. There's one other thing. So the highest leverage thing you can do in your 20s is maximize the amount you're going to get paid over your career. Getting the skills, the qualifications, the certifications, the degrees, whatever it is. But obviously maximizing your salary and your earnings potential now will hold you in good stead over time, because just naturally you'll have more money to invest and the like.
Yeah.
So
hustle for that promo. Seriously. I mean, the quicker you can get to it before your 30s, like, yeah, get that income stream flowing.
Yeah.
Big time. Alrighty, so that's the 20s. Foundation sorted, and hopefully in a spot where you can start investing small amounts of money once you leave uni and get into your job. You hit your 30s, and it's about going to the next level. You've got the foundations. It's about strengthening that financial position.
If your 20s is full of unknowns, your 30s, you're starting to have a little bit more clarity. There's no certainty, I don't think. No. Well, I'm only just in my 30s. But you're starting to know your career prospects and what your sort of career trajectory and where you want to work.
You're figuring yourself out.
Like what you want.
Who you are.
You might be settling down with a partner.
Yeah.
Some of those big questions around like buying a house or an apartment where you want to live, having kids, all those conversations start to come into play. So there's a bit more clarity around like what your financial needs are.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people in Australia at the moment, especially your early 30s, you've got like a sweet spot where the tsunami of expenses hasn't hit yet, mortgage payments, nappies, whatever it is, but you're earning more than you were in your 20s.
Yeah.
And so that sweet spot, we say maximize it because it may not last for too long.
It may not last, yeah. So look, if you have got to this point and you haven't started investing, again, don't fear. Keep it real, eat a burrito. But time is on your side. You still have decades in front of you. And much like in your 20s, it's about investing the right way now and getting your investing foundation sorted. But really, it's putting that free cash flow to work. You've got the promo at work. You're probably now hopefully bringing in more money than you're spending. You've worked out your budgets, and it's really putting that money into a savings plan to get the house. It's putting it into your core portfolio to start building the foundations there, and really driving investments into as many long-term growth assets as possible.
Yeah, and this is where the decision between housing and the stock market becomes more realistic.
Yeah.
Because you've probably started saving for a deposit at this point, and you're starting to think about that choice. I don't think there's a bad choice here. There's plenty of arguments, that the ungodly good run of Australian property may not last forever. But I think the leverage in property is certainly something that's attractive. And then having an offset account that you can get a guaranteed return on is pretty nice. So like there's nothing wrong with if you're saying I'm going to put my free cash flow to work and go all in on property. Similarly, if you're going to say property isn't a lifestyle choice for me, or it's out of reach financially, so I'm going to go all in on stocks, there's nothing wrong with that. I think the main thing is putting that free cash flow to work.
Yeah.
I think we would argue, we've learned over time, people think we're just all in on stocks, but I think there's a sweet spot in the middle where you try and get a foot on that property ladder and you try and put some money into stocks, because over the long term, having a foot in both camps is going to do you best.
Yeah.
There's no point paying off a mortgage in 20 years rather than 30 years and then having no liquidity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing that I wouldn't do though, Ren, at this point in my life, I'm chasing property, is try and accelerate my journey to buying my first home by investing my hard-earned dollars into the stock market that is my house deposit. If I have a 2 to 3 year time horizon that I'm wanting to buy a property in this decade, putting your money into the stock market is a risk that I wouldn't be taking. I would be very clear on any money I'm putting in the stock market is for long term, for my 40s, for my 50s, for my 60s.
Yeah. So I think the 30s is all about building on the foundations that you had in your 20s. And obviously, if you're in your 30s and you're just getting started, then you want to tick off the foundations first and then accelerate. So there's nothing wrong with, getting out of consumer debt and all of that, wherever you are in your journey. But yeah, make sure you're spending less than you're earning. Take that free cash flow, invest it, and be aware of the costs that are coming in, whatever they may be. If it's going to be kids or if it's just going to be lifestyle creep, because as you get older, you want a few nicer trips. You're not staying in hostels and all of that anymore. If it's housing costs, be aware that there are probably higher costs coming in some way, shape or form, and start planning for that.
Absolutely. All right, so we move on to our 40s. And I think if you haven't started investing yet, don't panic. You've still, again, got decades in front of you. And the good news is you're probably likely to be earning more than you were in your 30s. And hopefully that's also going to accelerate over the next sort of 10 or 20 years. So now it's about playing catch up. It's about taking that money and investing as much of it as you can. And this is where, you'll have different options available to you.
Your earning power has probably increased. You've had some career advancement. You've had some pay rises. You might have higher costs, but it's really trying to maximize your earnings power in this decade and then not spending that money.
Yeah.
And so then what you do with that difference, maybe it's paying down some debt that you've got. If it's a mortgage, hopefully you can pay that down or put some money in the offset. Maybe it's about increasing your super contributions and taking that money and getting the tax-free kick that you get by adding to your concessional super contributions. Or maybe it is just investing that money in your, outside of super, just investing it personally. But really, it's about maximizing the earnings power that you have now, because hopefully then you don't need to work so long in your later decades.
Yes, yeah. I think in this decade, Ren, there's an element of thinking about just general protection as well. You're likely now to have some dependents, kids and whatnot, and you're really starting to think about the next sort of phases of life. And just going through the advice process myself and listening to what other advisors are sort of saying, it's like really making sure that, you've got yourself covered with the right insurances, that you're protecting yourself against job loss if you've got a mortgage going on and you've got kids at school. So just ensuring that those other sort of like foundational things that earlier in life in your 20s you just thought, I don't need any of this jazz, making sure that that is certainly a consideration at that point in life, because you've worked hard for 2 decades now. You don't want to let it all sort of slip away if you don't have the right level of protection.
Yeah. So that's 20s, 30s and 40s. Build the foundations, start putting money to work, and then maximize your earnings power.
So one question to close out, Ren, in our 20s, in our 30s, we've spoken about just going all in on growth assets.
Yeah,
it's all about
growth.
building. Do you personally think that changes when you hit your 40s?
It's interesting that you asked, do I personally? So let's start with perhaps the more like financial planner answer, which is start upweighting the defensive assets. And you might start seeing sort of in your 40s, you should be like 75% growth, 25% defensive.
Yeah.
There's this rule of 110, which I've spoken about on the show before, which is it's like a financial planning rule that you take 110 and subtract your age, and that is the percentage of your portfolio that should be in growth assets. So if you're 40, 110 less 40 is 70, so you should be 70 growth, 30 defensive.
Yeah.
I have previously said on the show that I think it should be the rule of 140. And that's kind of my view now.
Okay.
Because if you think about, people think about 65 as like the
end.
The end.
Yeah.
Or, 60 even. But for me, it's like retirement now is a multi-decade time. And the idea that you want to get to 0% growth, 100% defensive at 60 is great if you've got a heap of money. But I think for a lot of people, they still need some growth to get them to 80 or 90 or, people, 100 these days.
Absolutely.
For me, in my 40s, when I'm thinking about my time horizon being when I'm 80 rather than my time horizon being when I'm 60, I started thinking, all right, well, that's still 4 decades of, like if the market crashes 50%, I've got time to recover.
Yeah.
Because you asked how do I personally think about it, I would say, you still want to be 80, 90% growth. Like if you were like, I want to be 100% growth, I would understand that.
All the power to you.
But I think the financial planning answer is probably like 75-25.
A little bit.
Yeah. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm of the same view. Like, I understand why financial planners at this point tell you to start thinking defensively. That's their job. I think they're always a little bit more conservative than we would just be personally. Because that's sort of their job. Focusing too much on defensive at this age, you're leaving a lot on the table.
Yeah.
And I think if you're in your 40s, again, as we've said at the top, you're still probably at not even at peak earnings capacity yet. So your ability to just pour money in if you needed to should lend itself towards still an aggressive mindset.
Yeah, and it obviously depends, if you've got shorter term goals, like medium term goals that you are investing towards, then maybe the volatility will kill you, or maybe like a market crash, you won't have time to wait for a recovery.
Yeah.
But if you are truly long-term in your thinking and this isn't money you're going to need to draw on in the short or medium term and you've got a multi-decade time horizon, we know the story of the stock market is a story of resilience as new businesses and new companies and new technologies emerge, get listed on the stock market, drive the market forward. There has never been a dip in history that wasn't worth buying. There's never been a dip in history that the stock market hasn't recovered from. History may not be a good guide, but it's been a pretty reliable indicator so far, and it's an indicator that I would continue to rely on personally to stay pretty aggressive with my portfolio.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a breather and keep it real and eat a burrito, and all thanks to Guzman y Gomez.
So, Bryce, much like your portfolio, with a Guzman burrito, you can make it your own. And what was that?
Big time.
Okay. And I've got some stats here across all states and territories that Guzman is in.
Yep.
The extras that people can add to their burritos are remarkably similar.
Really?
The top 4 additions in each state and territory are the same. So without looking, I want to see if you can guess them.
Guac's got to be one.
Guac is number 1 in every state and territory.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. No-brainer. I'm biased.
Although I actually think you don't add guac, add sauteed vegetables, and then you get the guac for free.
Yeah, but then you also have sauteed vegetables.
They're so good.
Fair call. Okay, guac is the number 1. Number 2 would be sour cream.
Sour cream, number 2 in every state, territory.
Look, I'm biased. Number 3, I've got to go double protein of some description.
No, so you got to be more specific, but you're right.
Okay, so
extra chicken is either number 3. It's number 3 in every state or territory, but South Australia, where it's number 4.
Love that. Everyone getting their protein.
So extra
their
chicken.
Macros.
So then what's this one is either 4th in every state, 3rd in South Australia.
An addition.
Yeah.
Oh, some sort of sauce.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
Like the jalapeno salsa.
No.
Oh, the smoky chipotle.
You're close.
Oh, the...
I think you might have blended two sauces together there.
I don't know.
It's chipotle mayo.
Chipotle mayo. Nice. Okay, good.
Well, if you want to make your burrito your own, grab the GYG app. You get a free burrito when you join their GoMex rewards program. You can get it delivered to your door with no service fee through the app. So wherever you are on your investing journey, keep it real, eat a burrito.
And I'm getting so hungry doing these ads, but let's keep moving. We're into our 50s now, Ren. We're starting to think about the transition towards retirement. Maybe you've hit fire, but at this stage, you're really starting to, think about how can I make the most of the wealth that I've built over the last decades, ensure that I protect that and can retire on my terms. But you still, again, 30, 40 years in front of you.
You're starting to think about what the third act in your life looks like. And so it's about being in your 50s, it's about being specific around what you want that to be, and then understanding what assets you've built over time, and then what are the trade-offs you need to make to bridge the gap between what you have now and what you want that third act to look like.
Yes.
And then there might have to be some give and some take in those goals and those aspirations. But yeah, it's now about planning for the next stage. And so now it's about transitioning that asset mix even more to a little bit more defensive, taking some risk off the table, less growth assets, more defensive. So it's also starting to think about more income strategies that around your super and transition to retirement strategies, things you can do there. Maybe it's about freeing up cash from downsizing your place if you've had kids and they've left or anything like that. But it's starting to think about what are those assets that I can free up? Where can I create income? And so those are some of the conversations you start having with your spouse or with your financial advisor or with ChatGPT.
Yes. Yeah, I think importantly, there are community members in the Equity Mates community who are at this point and feel like they're so far behind. They've only just really started turning attention to investing properly into the share market. And our message again is don't panic, because you do still have 10, 20, 30 years in front of you. But I would just be cautious here of your time horizon and your strategy. You might not want to, as you mentioned, Ren, you might not want to be plowing it all into 100% growth, because over the shorter term, if markets do drop, your ability to recover might be hampered by the time horizon that you have.
Yeah.
But don't panic nonetheless that you've left it too late. I think at any point in time, if you're putting money into the market in the right way, it's better than sitting there and feeling like you've just missed the boat completely.
Yeah. And then a couple of other things to tick off, estate planning, update your wills. Also, I mean, this is really should be for every decade, but particularly as you get older, it's making that investment in your health, getting ahead of any medical challenges, not ignoring potential challenges. Because financially, they could cripple you as well as physically they could cripple you. Yeah.
100%, yeah.
So I think that's 50s. It's all about looking forward, looking at that third act, starting to think about the planning and transition to retirement, which then I think leads quite naturally into your 60s, which is, your late 50s and your 60s, which is actually like pulling the trigger and
enjoying life.
Yeah. Retiring, reaping the fruits of the labor
the 40 years that you've been working. So at this point, I think it's just about preservation. You really don't want to be taking too many risks that you're going to lose the nest egg that you've built over the last 40 years, but equally keeping in mind that you could still have 20 or 30 years in front of you. And so you're really sitting down and working out what that drawdown is going to be, but also how you're going to preserve your capital, make sure there's still some in there that's going to grow over time. You've worked out what sort of income that you're going to need on a yearly basis to live the life that you want.
Yeah, and then I think the last part of it in your 60s, throughout your life, but particularly as you get older and retire, it's about sort of legacy. And that's both financial in the sense of, making sure that if there's people that you want to pass wealth on to, that you've got those plans in place. But I think it's also about passing on the knowledge that you've built up over your life. And particularly in Australia, the fact of the matter is financial literacy is going backwards. And that's not us just saying it. The government do different surveys and the state of financial literacy is pretty grim. We don't learn about it in school, and then if you're not learning about it from your family, then that knowledge isn't passed on generation to generation. And so I think for people who are older and are listening to this podcast, the fact that you're listening to this podcast means you have knowledge that so many Australians don't have about alternative ways to build wealth outside of property, about ways you can get started with small amounts of money, about the power of compounding and how that can be a life-changing impact over time. And so for me, I think if you're older and you're listening to this and you feel like, oh, maybe I missed the boat or didn't maximize the potential of investing, the most powerful thing you can do now is pass that knowledge on to people
Big time.
who can fully maximize the benefits of it.
Well, it's never too late to get started. No matter what decade you're in, no matter what age, there is something that you can do to maximize your financial position. So remember, keep it real and eat a burrito.
You have been listening to an Equity Mates Media production. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. This podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes. Any advice is general advice only and has not taken into account your personal financial circumstances, needs, or objectives. Before acting on general advice, you should consider if it is relevant to your needs and read the relevant product disclosure statement. And if you're unsure, please speak to a financial professional. The hosts of this podcast and their guests may have positions in the companies mentioned. Equity Mates Media operates under an Australian Financial Services Licence 540697.